Hi, Steve. It's really
Hey,
nice to see you.
hi, great to see you.
For people who don't know me, I'm Eva Wieprecht, and I'm right now located in Cologne, Germany, my hometown, in my office, and I'm the training director of the International Virginia Satir Institute of Germany, which I'm really thrilled about. And you are actually one of my advisory board members on this International Institute to continue the systemic work of Virginia Satir that also incorporated a lot of your work and your developments. And that brings me to this conversation with you. And I'm really happy that you're able to pencil in some time in your really busy schedule. And so first, Steve, tell our audience a little bit about you and who you are and a little bit about your background.
It's always a dangerous question to ask somebody with an Irish cultural background to tell us a little bit. From the point of view of trance or hypnotic work, Irish Catholic alcoholic family, San Francisco boy, came of age in sex, drugs, rock and roll in the 60s. And that was a lot of trance. Mm-hmm. Did my undergraduate at University of California, Santa Cruz, where I met like Bandler, Grinder, Bateson, Robert Dilts, and I hooked up together. That's where I met Milton Erickson, the founder of a new generation of hypnotic psychotherapy. Went to Stanford in my psychology for my doctorate, worked in the hypnosis lab there. And since then, I've been teaching, writing for a long time. I had a very, very busy practice. So I've been really using experientially the idea of how trance can support creativity and healing really all my life, I would say.
Yeah. Well, we met a long time ago as I was a student. Actually, I began with Transcamp. I just had finished my NLP studies as becoming an NLP trainer.
How long ago was that, Eva?
That's now almost 15 years ago.
So you were 13 then, huh?
I was very young then. Thank you for noticing. And, I actually noticed that the third generation of NLP, because I've been studying that for quite some time with Robert Dilts and Judith Delosier at NLPU, I noticed that the third generation of NLP was really opening up to something new and something different. I noticed different questions, and actually that noticing brought me to a curiosity what the influences were, and it brought me right to your work, and that brought me then to beautiful San Diego to do a Transcamp there, and that is bringing us to coming up with Transcamp pretty soon in Germany. So from your perspective, how would you describe what Transcamp is about if people have never participated in any of those workshops?
Well, they're really deep experiential learning communities, and particularly the residential ones like San Diego Transcamp or like the German Transcamp. We have this incredible place in the middle of nowhere, Rahden, near Bielefeld, where we basically live and eat and play music together and connect and have this amazing human community. And during the day, we're studying and exploring as a group how to find a creative relationship to something that we might call trance, or this open creative state that we can use for our own healing, but also if we have professional practices where we're working with human beings, we can use it there too. So because we emphasize in the work that everything comes from your state of consciousness as a practitioner, as well as a client. We emphasize that anything that you would want to invite others, such as your clients, to do, you have to start with yourself first. If you can't open a place where you're sympathetic and compassionate, skillfully, with some struggle that the client has, you're probably not going to be able to help them in any sort of sustainable way. So it's deep learning. It's learning a model and many techniques, but it's learning them experientially first. And again, within this bond of human community, that the community is really, really quite extraordinary.
Yeah, yeah. Is there any way how you could describe a difference between trance work, the way you do it, hypnosis work, and maybe sometimes people just also make the comparison to meditation? Is there a connection? What's the difference?
Well, to me, those are two related questions, which is, where does my work fit into the tradition of hypnosis, and
Yes.
and the kind of trance work that I do, how does it relate to meditation? Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, most people, both professionally and personally, when they heard that word hypnosis, they have a sort of a booga booga, somebody controlling you, taking over your mind, so forth. And so understandably, most people are really sort of nervous about it. And those that would follow it for those reasons, probably they're not good reasons. We assume people come to see us precisely because they haven't found their own voice, because they're carrying a lot of you shoulds or you should be that way from earlier in their life. So when the word hypnosis, generally first generation, means one person controls another. Mm-hmm. That's the problem, not the solution. My teacher, Milton Erickson, revolutionized hypnosis by talking about trance as not artificial, but it was something that in the fabric of ordinary consciousness. You could be daydreaming, you go through an intense experience, and you sort of lose your mind temporarily, and you hopefully come out the other side. You listen to a beautiful piece of music. For me, reading is one of my best trance channels. So it's an organic way in which you release the binds of these fixed maps that are up in your head and get back down to this deeper creative territory. While Erickson talked about, revolutionized the idea of the unconscious being organic and having a lot of wisdom, he didn't really change the idea of the conscious mind is the problem. So you have to hypnotize it to get out of the way. Yeah. And in his model, if you could just get into a good trance, that will take you home. I don't think that's the case. There's nothing in creativity research that supports that. I think really the model of creativity is some sort of mutually respectful, harmonious balance between this deeper presencing, we might call, and then this unique human capacity to represent it in certain ways as a way to navigate. Kind of like William James, one of the founders of American psychology back in the 1890s, likened it to the relationship of a horse to the rider. So my work looks at that. Just briefly, I started meditation. I was initiated into transcendental meditation when I was 14. I found Erickson at 19, and I have been meditating virtually every day since then. And I think they're close cousins. They're differences reflecting cultural differences. The East Asian culture that meditation generally arises from versus the Western culture that hypnotic trance comes from. What they both share, I believe, is what might be called presencing.
Mm-hmm.
This is a term Otto Scharmer has been using. It's interesting. I'm reading the most recent book of Ian McGilchrist, the Oxford neuroscientist, and he says the right brain, the nonverbal brain, which is the master creator, really experiences presencing. It's not like fixed boxes up in the head. It's feeling the world as a totality or as a whole, and it's in sort of motion, it's in movement. And then it takes something about that in terms of what it wants to do with that, and it sends it over to the verbal brain, who uses language, logic, linearity to manipulate the world in some way. Supposed to go back and forth. We in the West have figured out how to stay pretty much in the left brain, the verbal brain, the non-somatic brain, with terrible, terrible consequences. Mm-hmm. So we see that as one of the main sources of problems. And what we're looking to do is help a person shift to the right brain being dominant. And I think meditation does that. Art does that. Performance art does that. Dancing does that, as long as you're not, dancing rigidly. And trance does that. So it's a way to release the fixed maps and go back to a place where you can be in touch with the totality of consciousness.
Right. Well, if you would like to describe to somebody else what they could learn, they could take away from this intensive training opportunity in trance and generative trance in this format of Transcamp, what would be the specific takeaways, what to learn?
Well, the what I was just talking about is a more sort of the general understanding that we create our reality, we create them from our maps. If our maps get fixed, we have to release them. And we say in English, go back to the drawing board, or go back, to before we've got these fixed understandings. And feeling that and experiencing that is really, really generative, because it gives you this direct sense there's something deeper than my control mind. So I don't have to hold on. I don't have to be afraid of relaxing. I don't have to be afraid of surrendering. And that's a big game changer. The second thing that we learn is a 7-step model for creativity, so that we can use that creative state to generate sustainable change in ourselves, or to help our clients do that. So we really focus on step 1, how to go back to the drawing board, how to go to this open presence. Step 2, how to get this really good, experientially resonant, simple intention or goal. It sounds easy, but it's not. Step 3, how to make sure you connect with a lot of resources so that you don't feel isolated or overwhelmed or stuck when you face a challenge. Step 4, what are those obstacles? What are those trigger points? When you hit them, you sort of shut down and you just go into some automatic negative pattern inside of you or outside of you. How do you make friends with those? How do you transform those things? Those are kind of the 4 elemental steps to me for sustainable creativity. And then what trance allows you to do is sort of mix them in the same soup, if you will. So we can blend them so that my resources and my obstacles are not living in 2 different worlds. They're part of the same dance. They're part of the same integrated matrix or mandala. So that's what I carry, is that everything that's happening on my experiential path is part of the same integrated family. So that gives us this general sense that's liberating, but also the specific details about what we need to focus on and how in order to make lasting transformational change.
Right. You were just talking about the word family. And as you know, I focused much of my attention and my work to really study deeply how the family patternings, or maybe call them family trances, may still stay, be in play today. Connection between generative trance work and like the system family therapy approach that I focus my attention to, are those two very separate things, or do you sense how they actually link together?
I mean, family, of course, is probably our deepest trance, if we were to use that term, just loosely like that. What the trance work focuses on, what Erickson focused on, what Gregory Bateson, my other teacher, focused on, what Virginia Satir, who is also a teacher of mine, focused on, is this great systemic revolution that says the base of our reality is not parts or pieces. Mm-hmm. The base of our reality are this interconnected wholeness of different systems. Our first and deepest system is our family system. Mm-hmm. And that family system has much deeper meaning, much deeper power than any individual inside of that system. So it's really unfortunate that in the West, we put primary attention on the part or the individual, rather than the communities that individual is in. And again, the family is the first and deepest community that you can never erase. You can only grow within it and transform within it. So the work that you would do in families, or like Satir's work, mm-hmm. or the constellation work, for example, which really comes from Virginia's work, would have the same base as generative trance work. Mm-hmm. We're looking to open this sort of basin, which you might call the family system, although it's much more than just your biological family. And then we're looking to download all the different parts that are not in integration. The goal, the resources, the obstacle, yourself as a child, yourself as a mature adult, your personal self, your professional self, all those differentiated parts, mm-hmm. we're looking to bring into a generative family system, if you will, mm-hmm. and to see how that provides the basis for a release of the stuck places of any part of the system, and the development of a new integration of the systems into a whole that is a creative, healthy whole that will support health and happiness and creativity in every member of its system.
Yeah, thanks. Who is this training for? Is this to learn trance work, to apply that and use that in client work? Is it for self-discovery, or is it both and the above?
Well, it really is both. I mean, as you're one of the main faculty on the San Diego Transcamp, and you know that we get a variety of different people. Probably, well over half are people that this is part of their professional vocation. I'm a therapist, I'm a coach, I'm a consultant. And so I really want to learn methods that can really improve my work with people. Mm-hmm. But we also get our fair share of people who really are in it as a personal transformation path. And because we put equal focus on the personal presence and the personhood of the practitioner, as well as how to help others with it. Mm-hmm. A number of people come just because they want to do their own healing process. That doesn't mean it's a therapy class. It's a therapeutic community. Yeah. But we ask everybody to make a commitment to equally be there for others as well as for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And to see how those really support each other.
Right.
I thought, maybe I give just one brief example that would give people a sense, and we'll see. Do you think that would be helpful?
Sure. Yeah.
I had a Zoom client last night, and she was telling me she's a lot of stress at work. She works for a tech company, and she's really vulnerable to coronavirus. And out here in the United States, there's a big group, percentage of people that say no to masks and, et cetera. So she works in a big, a space with maybe 20 people, and nobody's willing to wear masks. And so she's pretty stressed about it. In her stress, she said what she does is she does this sort of binge eating on sugar and carbohydrates, potato chips, French fries. And she had lost a lot of weight. And she thought, okay, now, by not eating any of that stuff. And she just found herself compulsively going back to that. And she said, how come I can't just say no? No potato chips.
Yeah.
I said, well, we all have core needs. We have needs for sweetness. We have needs to feel relaxed in our body. We have needs to safely connect with others. And the thing about us human beings is every one of these needs or every one of these values can be experienced and expressed in a gazillion different ways. It's not like, my dog, eats like a dog, runs like a dog, it's a species thing. But us human beings, how do you satisfy your need to feel safe or to feel some sort of relaxation in your body? The straightforward way is I get it from human connection with others. But for a lot of us, when we go to get our core needs satisfied in human connection, we get rejected or ignored or told that's bad or whatever. So we shut down, which is, one of the first problems. We're no longer in that open, creative presencing state. And that need doesn't go away. It gets outsourced. And so there's a question, how can I satisfy this need without human beings? And that's where alcohol or cigarettes or compulsive shopping or binge eating or pornography or whatever would be a way to try to satisfy a core need if you don't feel that you can do it through direct human connection. So I said, when you're eating that, let's slow it down. We do with something we call somatic modeling.
Yeah.
Which is this presencing state where you're not thinking, now my body will do this and I have this outcome, but let's just relax and let the body sort of move through a particular pattern. And I can just be sort of open and curious. So long story short, eat those potato chips slowly in a open presencing trance state. And just hold the question, what is my unconscious, what is my inner self trying to create? And she said, she was sort of surprised. It was simple, but he said, never thought of it. I need warmth and safety.
Yeah.
And her learning had been, when you need warmth and safety, call in the potato chips, because that's your best bet. Those are my earlier learnings, my best choice that I made. But now eating potato chips isn't really satisfying that need, and it's creating more problems. So in this trance state, we begin to have this rhythm, resonance, repetition, so we can hold the question, what other ways, what better ways that, in Milton Erickson's words, fit the needs and the learnings and the values of the present self? How can I satisfy that need for warmth and safety in ways other than potato chips. So you get to release these fixed patterns. You know, I need warmth, then I drink alcohol.
Right.
Do I need warmth? I don't know the best way for me to do it. Now, let's explore that in a trance. You're not being told by the hypnotist, this is what you will do instead. Yeah. But the hypnotist is supporting you into this open presencing, so you can just explore for you what's the best way to update that need for warmth and safety or whatever it is.
As you spoke, it really reminded me of you know, when you talk about those core needs that we have, and that we then I would connect that we learned in our family growing up, and then created those automatic responses, or maybe more reactions, which are fixed, rather than being able to really respond to them. And I sometimes like to have people kind of almost in imagination touch the past, touch, like, you know, places where that may have come from, to bring it to the now, to upgrade and update it into a new way of understanding, to have those core needs met. And it sounds like that's really where those two works very nicely,
I think so. Yeah.
Connect, because that's where the old patterns are getting almost automatically invited.
And this is so clear in, you know, any meaningful relationship. You know, sometimes I ask, how many of you are parents? So a lot of hands come up. How many of you have mastered being a parent? How many of you are in intimacy relationships? A lot of hands come up. How many of you have completely mastered intimacy? And everybody laughs like, yeah, that's the silliest question, because we know we never master it, because the solution that's needed today is different from the solution that worked yesterday. And so we're in this ongoing process of learning, updating, having to create new ways for the best fit to meet some challenge personally or professionally. So when we really are stuck and we don't know how to do it, that's where trance is really helpful.
Right. We're in really specific times right now. A lot of challenges are coming up, and it seems like now is the time where, almost like an amplifier, also these really old experiences kind of come back. What would you say is right now a really important time to maybe especially do generative trance work?
Well, I think what's happening now, and you know, in a way that's much more intense than any other time in our lives. I mean, I'm 67. I've never experienced a time as tumultuous as now. Usually, like in our lives, or we work with people, say each of us has 5, 6, 7, you know, core places of our life. You know, our relationship with our family, relationship with our body, our relationship to our work, you know, so forth. Usually, maybe one of them or two of them are needing to go through a death and a rebirth. So during that time, we've got some places of stability. You know, if I go to work, then I can sort of let go of this sort of emotional stuff that's happening in my home, or vice versa. Or, you know, now it seems that it's like an earthquake. And every part of our identity, individually, collectively, is cracking. The good news is that means something very, very deep is trying to emerge. The bad news is what we study in trance work. If when you're going through a change, most of the deep changes we don't consciously ask for. You know, they're just happening. If as you go through that change, you lock down, it creates horrible, horrible problems way beyond the sort of the suffering or the confusion of what's going on. That's what's happening. People try to block the river. So these days, I think we need to do a lot more quieting and a lot more listening and a returning to something. We always try in trance to go to a place deeper than the problem. Today, that for me, I know for me, there's an old Zen koan, what was your face before your parents were born? But I've been sort of holding it, what was my face before humans were here? To reconnect to the tree consciousness. I know that might sound a little Californian, but nature is within us. Nature is our mother. The ancestors are our mothers and fathers. When we need to go forward, we need to go back to a deeper place first. So I think the trance stuff, not the specific type of trance. I mean, I really think this generative trance is great, but whatever it is, meditation, taking walks in nature, just listening more deeply and quietly to ourselves and to others, that's the most important thing that's missing right now.
So it brings me to the last question. You are really traveling and teaching all over the world.
Not so much.
Not right now. But you're actually coming back in May for a presence training in Transcamp in Germany, and I'm really grateful for that. What is unique? What do you think is the signature? What is unique about German Transcamp that makes you come back, I guess now over many years that I've been putting this together?
Well, there's a great sponsor. She's amazing, and she does a lot of incredible things there. What's her name? Germany's the first foreign country, first place I went to outside the US, and that was in 1976, I believe. So I love Germany. I love German culture. Where we do the training, Marah, out in nature, it's such a beautiful place. Great food, great meeting place. May is like the time to be there because of the weather. Generally, it's smaller. I think they can hold in like the low 30s or something. Sometimes Transcamp can be 100 people. So the fact that it's a residential in this beautiful place and it's small, and there's a tradition there. I've been doing German Transcamp for some time, so it really there's a nice tradition. So those are some of the things that I especially like about German Transcamp.
I can add in, I personally really enjoy this place very much too. And what I love too, since everybody's staying at the same place, we really have some extended time, and we usually create a really nice frame about doing some activity like yoga or Tai Chi practice in the morning to wake up. Some people go for a walk, then have breakfast, we do the workshop, and then usually I begin in the ending of the day to summarize it in a somatic movement integration process where I take the seeds and the principles and the learnings and the depth of the day, and then translate that into the somatic way and move it and allow the left hemisphere to take a break and let it go and just summarize it again. And then we usually have evening activities, optional. We sometimes watch a Gregory Bateson movie, or I offer family workshop to deepen some of those understandings and do maybe a parts party or something like that. So we're adding in some interesting frames to the whole concept.
In May, usually the frogs are mating, so you have hundreds of frogs singing their mating song around the pond there.
That's very fun too. Yeah. So I just want to say thank you for the work, thank you for making the long trip to come back to Germany, come over. It's really nice to have you back in May.
Really look forward to it.
Yeah.
So I hope to see many of you there.
Yeah, me too. So thanks for now.